What's up, everybody? Thanks for checking out this tip from turningpointmusic.net. Today I want to get into how to create a grid from a non-grid based performance. In other words, if you just recorded something out in open air, like yourself playing an instrument or a band who plays together, not with a click or anything like that, you might want to get it to the click after the fact. So I want to show how to do that. I'm going to use a Tom Petty song that I like. Now I'm doing this for myself anyway because this is just a cover I'm gonna learn. But this is a very widely applicable technique. You could use it for all the things I said you could. And if you do that, if you recorded an acoustic act out in the air or something, and then you got a grid to it, then you could create MIDI that quantized to your kind of random goofy grid or non-robot kind of grid that you created. So it's a really handy technique to know. So I just recorded this in real time off of Spotify. Yes, I know Spotify is evil, but at least I pay a little bit for it. Not that Tom Petty got any of that money, but so let's create a click track. So go track, create click track. Let's drag this up to the top. Your click is just a mono aux. Let's grab a sound that I like. So we have a click, but if we hit play, we'll hear that it is, unless it's a huge coincidence, we'll hear that the click is not related to the track. Right, so totally unrelated. So let's get started. I'm going to be using tab to transient a whole lot during this tip. So Option Command Tab toggles that button on and off, or you can just go and click it. But turn that button on, make sure Tab to Transient is on, and we will get started. So I'm going to try and find the 1 first. That wasn't too hard, so just tab right to the 1, Command I, hit 1, enter. Now Command I is identify beat, and that creates bar and beat markers. We're going to be using that a lot too. So Command I and Tab to Transient are the biggest two players here. Now, if you know a little bit about Pro Tools, you might be thinking, oh, couldn't you use Beat Detective? Well, maybe you could, but actually, even if you were going to do that, you would need to do this first. Beat Detective needs to know, oh, this is an actual 8-bar, 4-bar, 16-bar, whatever section. So even if you wanted to use Beat Detective, you'd have to do this first. But Beat Detective, I have tons of experience with. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It just depends on the content. Stuff like this that is very heavily compressed, Beat Detective doesn't often work too well. So far we just got the 1 and that's it. The other thing I'll be using a lot is toggling my click on and off, and I use 7 on the numeric keypad. 7 toggles that on and off on your transport. If you want to open up your transport, that's Command numeric 1. Or just go Window Transport, and then 7 toggles that on and off. That's again 7 on your numeric. If you don't have a numeric, if you're on a laptop, get one. But if you can't, just press the button. There you go. So let's keep going. Let's try and find the 2. I'm going to turn off the click for a second, just hit 7. So counting this, I'm counting 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and it's 8th notes, right? So this is the 2. So let's go Command I on that spot and just hit 2, and it clears out. You can see it changes it to 1, 0, 0, and hit enter. So from that very little bit, it's already going to have the tempo pretty close. Let's take a listen. So you can see just from defining those 2 spots, bar 1 and bar 2, it got the tempo pretty close for the whole thing, but we might want it to be a lot closer. We're going to go further. The other thing you might be noticing is the click itself is just pulsing at a quarter note. So because I'm hearing the resolution as an 8th note, I want the click to sound as an 8th note too. So to do that, I'm going to stay on my bar 1 where I am. I'm going to hit Option 1, and that's 1 on the numeric. If you don't have that, just go Event Time Ops right here. And I'm going to change my meter to an eighth note to session end and apply. So now we're much closer. So what I want to do now is go get the broad strokes, so to speak. I want to get all the big spots. Since I know this is pretty close, and even just eyeballing this, it looks like, wow, this is pretty on the grid. Great. But I'm going to go through and get some kind of important spots. Let me turn off my click for a second. So right there, I use tab to transient to jump to what really is 9. He met a girl out there with... But it's seeing up here, it thinks it's 84880. Well, that's just because there's just some drift here. It's just natural. So I'm going to go through and fix these things. So again, I just hit an 880. What that's getting at is it's at 880 ticks. Well, there are 960 ticks per quarter note, so 880 is most of the way to 960. It's just what it's telling you is this is what I think this spot is, but we can just change that. We can go Command I, say, no, actually you're 9, enter, and you can see the whole grid shifted a little bit. And that's what I mean by go in and get the important ones. Now I might go to about 17 and see, and I just hit star, or asterisk rather, I'm sorry. Asterisk gets you into your main counter, and then you see over here, or your transport if it's up, and then hit 17, enter, just to get me close, or you can just mouse to it, whatever. So now I want to back up. I'm going to get out of grid mode, hit F2 to get into slip. I'm going to tab to that spot. And here again, you can see it's a little bit off. Look at the door. So I'm going to hit Command I and hit 17. Look at the door. Look at the door. She had a guitar. So I want to go and get about every 8 bars right now, just to make sure all those transients are on. So I'm going to go / +8, enter. That's just a little nav trick. You don't need to sweat that if you don't care. Open, wide open, wide open, open. So here you can see 24,4,959 is just barely off, so that's just going to be 25. Command I, 25, enter. Under them skies of blue, out in the great wide open, a rebel without a clue. Command I, 31,4,933. We can guess that's 32. So using tab to transient again, Command I, 34,1. So that's just going to be 34. Good to not be in grid mode here because it'll accidentally click on a line and you'll think, oh, that's what it is. You want to be in slip mode because you're looking for all this variance. You want to make sure you don't accidentally just click on a grid line and snap to it and think, oh, it's right. 37,4,890. Well, obviously my guess is that that's 38. Right? So I just undid that just to talk about that a little further. So Command I. So when I do that, 37,4,890, right now it's telling me, okay, this spot right here, based on what the current the tempo currently is, this is what I think it is. But we know from listening to it and from looking at it that that's actually 38, which would be right here. We're basically forcing this line to jump back, this grid line. So again, I'm going to redo that. So I'll go 38, enter.
The paper said it always played from the heart.
And you can see Pro Tools is generating these little teeny itty bitty tempo changes just based on where we are defining these grid lines.
The paper said it always played from the heart. He got an agent and a road. They made a record. I was the limit.
So I'm just trying to jump around and make this take not all day long. So you can see that one's really, really close, 45, 4, 9, 59. So that's just almost 46. So we're going to change that to 46. Command I on that, change that to 47, just barely off.
His leather jacket had chains that would jingle.
The one thing I didn't mention at the very beginning of this that I probably should have is that I have a pug who wants to be on my lap. No, is that the song is in 4/4, and that's the very first thing you should do is figure out what meter you're in. Certainly lots of music is in 4/4, most music I would say, but there's plenty of music out there, and 3, 4, 6, 8, lots of other meters if you're into jazz and prog. But very first thing, figure out the meter and define it on your meter ruler. Had I not done that first, or had this not been in 4/4, everything we would have done after that would have not been right. So important little thing I left out there.
Leather jacket had chains that would jingle.
So now I'm just going through and just grabbing various little transients here and there. 48, 49, 40, so that's 49.
They both met movie stars, partied and mingled.
So I'm just going to call that 51 because that's the downbeat there.
Their A&R man said, I don't hear a single. The future.
So I'm just looking for those obvious downbeats. That's almost to 53, you can see, so I'm going to change that to 53.
Future was wide open.
Command I. That one's right on. Good. Command I on that downbeat. That's going to be 57. It's just almost there.
Into the great wide open. Under them skies.
Let's jump way out here, skip some time.
Out
So that's just ahead, so we'll call that just 61 even.
in the great wide open. A rebel.
63 even. $66, 1, 894. So that's probably 66, 2, because 66, 1, 960 would be the same as 66, 2.
Into the great wide open.
And it is. Let's jump ahead a little further. So that's just going to be 68, 1.
Into the great wide open. A rebel.
Command I, 74, 958. So that's going to be, you can just change this to 960, which is the total, and then look, 71, 1. Same thing.
Rebel without a clue.
Now here's a funky one, 72 to 465. Well, that's halfway through the beat. So without getting too much into the numbers of it, I'm going to just change that to 480 because that's halfway through 960. heard that drift a little. Going to call that 73.1. There again, halfway through the beat, 480. Same thing, 480, halfway through the beat. He's drifting a little bit here, doing that funky fill. Same thing, 480. So the deal with the ticks, I know people run away as soon as I start talking about math, but have a quick look at this. If you got 960 ticks per quarter note, that's the total here. So if you want to divide that by 16, i.e. a 16th note, you get 60. So there's 60 ticks per 16th note, and then these are all the divisions there that you commonly run into when you're breaking stuff down. If you don't ever want to think about this, well, you don't have to, but it's helpful to know. This is on video. You can just type that up or email me and I'll email it to you. But that's the tick breakdown. So from this point, obviously I've mapped the whole song. I could go back to the start. So is that good enough? Are we done? Well, it just depends on what you're going to do with this. If you're going to go and do MIDI against something, I might get it even better than that. Let's bring Beat Detective into the fold just for the heck of it. What we were doing with Command I is what Beat Detective does in a way. So I'm going to take it with Beat Detective. Best to do small selections. So I'm going to do an 8-bar selection. So I'm going to hit / to get up into the counter up here. You can see if I keep hitting it, it toggles around. So I'm going to go 3 times, so I'm to length, and I'm going to go 8, enter. Sit down, Emma. Okay. So I always want to check the loop. You could sit here and listen all the way through the loop, or with this selection selected as it is, I'm going to hit Control Command P. Turn on dynamic transport. I'm going to click over here so I can hear it loop around. Good loop. Okay, so hit Control Command P again, get out of it. Hit Command numeric 8 to get into Beat Detective. And I'm not going to do this whole song. I just want to show you something. So I'm going to be on bar and beat marker generation. That's what we were just doing manually. I'm going to go capture selection. And then we should see here that it's 1 to 9. Which is 1 to 9, it's 8 bars. So what does it have in it? Well, we're listening to eighth notes. We already talked about that with our click, so let's keep it on eighth notes. And let's go, leave it on beats for now and click Analyze. So that looks beautiful. That looks correct. So what I want to do now is just say Generate. So when you do this, basically, it's asking you preserve tick or sample position. And right now, it doesn't matter because we don't have anything in our session. But if we did, if we had any MIDI tracks in here, we would always want to preserve tick position. Otherwise, the MIDI would sit there like concrete and the grid would change. And the whole point here is that we're trying to make everything align to our funky grid that we're creating that aligns with this song. So this defaults to preserve sample position, unfortunately, but you'll almost always use preserve tick position. So now I'm going to say OK. And up here, it created, let me Command Z undo, Command Shift Z redo. It created all these tiny little tempo changes just like we were doing. So now we have a perfect click track. And I could go through the rest of the track if I wanted to and try and do this with Beat Detective. Let's try and do it from bar 9 to 17. So here, bar and beat marker generation, stay there, capture selection, analyze. That looks beautiful too. Don't expect it to always work this well. Beat Detective is a pain in the behind. But regardless, the point here is that none of this would have even ever worked. And I saw it screw up there. Undo. See, that's so funny. The line moved when I generated. That's just a bug. I've seen that for years. Yeah, that bastard line. But let me show you something. Well, always, first thing, just listen. Let's get out of Beat Detective.
He met a girl out there with a tattoo too. The future was wide open. They'd moved into a
So we heard a funky one right in there.
They'd moved into
So that one of the cool things now is these are all, you can just move them and we can hear that one's early and I think I can see it. So let's try line it up with that.
They'd moved into a place they both could.
Voila, fixed. So once these are sitting there, it just Beat Detective just misread a transient. We saw that jump and that was the bug, but these are just movable. So you can just kind of earball them to the transients once you have them in play there. I'll do another tip on how to better utilize that in an even deeper way one of these days. But for now, that's the idea. So I could go through the rest of the session and just keep doing those 8-bar chunks and try it with Beat Detective. Or if you get to the point where Beat Detective, we'll do one more, where Beat Detective is not working well because it's so overcompressed, I've now taught you how to do it manually. So let's start at 17. So just make sure you got your perfect 8-bar selection, Command 8 or event, wherever the heck there it is, Beat Detective, Command 8. Bar and beat marker generation, capture, make sure your note value here is right given what it contains, 8th note, analyze. See, this one's going to be screwy. If you know it's going to be screwy, you could try different emphasis or emphasis, although that doesn't usually, sometimes it does help. High and low equals treble versus bass, and enhanced came out circa Pro Tools 7.4 when they did all the elastic time stuff. So that actually, I was going to make fun of it, but that was better. Still, I'm not sure if it's perfect, but we'll give it a try. Generate, preserve tick, okay. And I can see it got screwy again.
Look at the door. She had a guitar and she taught him some chords. The sky was the limit.
Yeah, as Beat Detective often does, it got all screwy in there. So let's undo. And let's try and do just bars. Sometimes that can be helpful. Let's analyze once more. Let's try enhanced again. No, it's the same. Oh, no, it's not quite the same. So when it gets all screwy, if you want a little bit of a shortcut, just try and do bars and generate.
Look at the door. She had a guitar and she taught him some.
See, I don't like what it's doing here.
Look at the door.
Which is why I started the way I did, doing it manually, because often Beat Detective just kind of funky, even when it's pretty straightforward 4/4 material like this. So that is the tip. It definitely takes a little bit of practice, but it's a great, great skill. I've used this so many times in so many different ways, and it will really give you a better mastery of Pro Tools. I hope you dig the tip. Thanks for checking it out.